purpose loud.
Welcome to this edition of Taking Care of Business. I'm Mary Beth Sewald, President and CEO of the Vegas Chamber. The 2025 legislative session is in full swing, and today we're taking you inside the halls of the State Legislative Building in Carson City, and it is gorgeous here in Carson City. This session is filled with a lot of discussions that could have a significant impact on employers, employees, and of course, job opportunities across the state. And we're here today with Speaker Steve Yeager. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always good to chat in beautiful Carson City.
Well, it's been already a year here in Carson City session. Tell us a little bit about your priorities and give us a flavor for how things are going so far.
Yeah, I think they're going well. It seems really, really busy this session. Every session is busy, but this one seems busier. And I think there are a few reasons for that. We have bills that have been drafted earlier than ever before. I think we're about 100 bills ahead of where we normally are. So that means there's more work being done in the committee, bigger bills coming out sooner. So I think it feels we're in a full-on sprint, even though this is really a marathon. So I think that's really, how the session's gone so far, and with the federal uncertainty, obviously there's a lot of questions up in the air about what the budget looks like, both in the state and federally, and that's caused us to have a lot of extra meetings after hours to try to get these things figured out.
Well, and I know you all are working overtime. So, and I know Speaker Yeager, during your address, your response to the governor's State of the State, you talked a lot about your priorities being education, several others, and that Nevada holds a couple of records in terms of spending for education. Talk to us a little bit about that and why it's so important.
Yeah, so last legislative session, 2 years ago, we actually increased education funding, public education funding, by $2.2 billion, which as a percentage was the largest increase of any state in the country. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, we were way underfunded, so we had a lot of ground to make up. But number two, we actually had a pretty good economic situation last session, and I think funding public education was a shared priority between the legislature and the governor. So we were able to do that and make a significant investment, the likes of which we haven't really ever seen in the history of the state.
And how does that trickle down to the students?
Yeah, it goes directly to the students. So that money basically goes through the Department of Education, but it is per pupil funding. So that money actually follows the students. So, it follows them into the classroom. It allowed us to pay teachers more, to give teachers upwards of 20% raise. We were having issues with getting qualified teachers to either come to the district or to stay in the district. And I think of Clark County School District in particular because it's the largest one, but it really applied to every district in the entire state. So really proud of that we were able to make those investments the last session.
And I know other priorities of yours include things like, easing the financial burden on families, lowering housing costs, healthcare, the list goes on and on. Some of your prescription drugs is another one. So talk to us a little about those priorities for this session.
Yeah, I think we heard loud and clear in the election that folks were really hurting. And this isn't a surprise. I mean, we talk to our neighbors and we know things cost more, prices are increasing, housing is becoming less attainable. So we really focused on lowering some of those costs. So whether it's in the housing space and being able to enact programs to help home buyers, whether it's protecting people from being evicted. On the healthcare side, prescription drug prices have been increasing. So, really trying to have a focus on what is going to help actual people in their day-to-day existence, because you really shouldn't have to work 2 full-time jobs and still struggle to make ends meet. So that has been our priority this session, and we're looking at every single bill under the lens of how does this help people not just survive but get ahead.
And we really appreciate you at the Vegas Chamber. You meet with our team, I think, every week, and we work very closely with you, and you just always have an open door, and you're fabulous to work with. So you're always working on things that are for the betterment of Nevadans, across the whole state. If there was one message that you would like to share with Nevada's small business employers, what might that be?
First, a big thank you, because, you really are the driver of the economy as a small business employer. We know that most jobs are created by small businesses. But beyond that, just that your legislature is trying to get this right. We come from all walks of life in this world. Some of us are teachers, some of us are lawyers, some of us are farmers or ranchers. But the bottom line is we want to get it right. So, working with a group like the Chamber is really helpful because that helps us make better decisions. I really think all of us want to get to the same end point, and that's how can we make this state everything we want it to be. We might disagree about how to get there along the way, but just know that we're working hard, and I think the other message would be to participate in this process. We have a very open process. It's easy to participate, whether you're in Carson City, Las Vegas. You can call in on the telephone now and provide testimony. So it's really helpful for us to hear from normal, everyday Nevadans about what's on their mind and what they think we can do better.
Okay, and is this session any different than others? It seems to have a bit of a different energy this year. What would you say is different?
I think the big difference is the federal uncertainty. 37% of Nevada's budget comes from the federal government. That's a lot of money. And so with these proposed cuts that are out there and not knowing how that's going to play out, that has, I think, made it a lot more stressful for us as legislators because we've got to think about how do we close a budget and what are we going to do if cuts come after session. So I think that's made it a little bit more stressful. And for me, that's what keeps me up at night, right? What if we get done with session and all of a sudden Medicaid gets cut? Or special education funding gets cut, or unemployment insurance gets cut. That's going to mean real impacts for folks. So that has added a lot of extra work to us, and I think it's added a sense of urgency for the legislature. We only meet 120 days every other year, so we've got to do everything we can to protect Nevadans from what might be coming down in the next few months, and we just don't know what that's going to be, but we're trying to be as prepared as possible.
Well, and with those uncertainties, is there a way to actually create contingency plans, or do we just have to kind of do the best we can and hope for the best?
I think it's our responsibility to at least have all the information. So you're seeing the legislature do a number of hearings about where are the federal sources of money? What would the cuts mean? What have prior legislatures done when faced with budget difficulties? So number one, we have to have the information because you don't know what levers you can pull if you don't know what the levers are. But beyond that, I think it's hard to put in a contingency plan because, to be honest, there's been so much uncertainty at the federal level where day by day we're hearing different messaging about what's happening. But I think what we can do is just be really, really prepared. So then if we do have to go into a special session, hopefully we can come in and hit the ground running and we're not spending the first 3 or 4 days just trying to figure out what the problem is.
Thank you again, Speaker Yeager. We appreciate your insights today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, and when we come back, stay with us because we'll have a great conversation with Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro.
Nevada honors those in uniform. One of the biggest events is the Las Vegas Chamber's MAC Night Out.
That really is an event to honor Nevada's military servicemen and women and to pay tribute to so many of them who sacrifice so much for our freedom.
When you look at what the Chamber has done by bringing together an event, an experience where they recognize and elevate and educate and communicate about our military, the less than 1%, those who serve, those who are on the front lines, those who have selfless service. When they take the time to do that, this is what it's all about.
By July of 2025, nearly all Nevada employers will be required to offer a retirement plan to all employees. As a business, how do you even start? Just call the Vegas Chamber to get plugged into the Chamber's 401k plan. It's simple to administer, provides great options, and will quickly help your business meet Nevada's new retirement plan mandate. Visit vegaschamber.com to get plugged in. So we are here with Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro, talking about the Nevada State Legislature, talking about specifically your Educate Act. Very exciting. What are some other policy priorities that you have this year in addition to that?
So I think this legislative session, we've been very focused on the budget. We have a budget that was sent to us that is there are a lot of programs that we're investing in, but we're finding throughout our budget hearings, right, that there are places where we have to really make sure that the dollars that we're putting into those programs are working for us. So when I think about some of the mental health issues that we're facing here in the state, we've had a lot of conversations around children's mental health, around public and behavioral health, and how it is that we're investing in those programs. So I think if you've been watching the legislature, the budget piece of that has taken, I think, a lot of our time and rightfully so. That's the job of the legislature, to fund the state for the next biennium. And so we really are having those conversations because we have to, I think, take a good look at how we're spending those dollars, because the budget really is spent, and in some places maybe overspent on ongoing expenses. So we're having a lot of those conversations. And I think one of my priorities, right, is to make sure that when we're passing a budget for this next biennium, that it makes sense. In the context of also some uncertainty at the federal level over federal funding, those have been a lot of our conversations as well, because if we lose federal funding, for example, for healthcare with respect to Medicaid, if we lose substantial portions of our Medicaid dollars here in Nevada, it affects, Medicaid covers 1 in every 2 births here in Nevada. It also covers upwards of 800,000 plus Nevadans. And so that is a significant portion of our population that accesses health care through Medicaid. If we lose that funding, for example, if we were to lose expansion dollars, we have estimates from the Department of Health and Human Services that could lead to a loss of $1.9 billion over the next biennium, which is a huge number. So we're really dialed in, I think, to making sure that the budget makes sense, and that we're looking at all of the different things that could be implicated if we do lose those federal funds. But beyond that, we're really focused on making sure that we can do things to help our economy, to make sure that people, everyday Nevadans, right, have access to housing and can afford to, live, work, play in Nevada. Those are huge policy priorities for us. And I've been working also a lot in the public safety space. So we just had a bill presentation to deal with material that is AI generated that is harmful to children, to make sure that we can really crack down on that and make sure that we're keeping kids online safe. And then also we're looking at expanding some of our other public safety pieces, like making sure that we're still continuing to pay for our police force down in Clark County. So public safety has always been something that I have been interested in. I come from the world of public safety in some respects. I was a deputy district attorney and a chief deputy district attorney in the Clark County District Attorney's Office for a long time. So those are issues that personally I am very concerned with and that we hear about from our constituents all the time.
It sounds like the energy at session this year is a little more bipartisan than maybe it has been in the past. I met with Governor this morning, Governor Lombardo, and he was extolling your virtues and saying how much that you guys have been meeting and talking and things like that. And it sounds like you have a lot of the same kinds of priorities. So hopefully that bodes well for a session where we can pass a lot of good things for Nevadans.
I hope so. I think when we're sent to Carson City, I always say, some people in my district didn't vote for me, but I still have an obligation to come here and represent them the best that I can. And so I think that comes best from collaboration and compromise and conversations with folks to come up with what is the best policy, right? When we're talking about how it is that we expand access to healthcare, how it is that we continue to invest in a quality education, how it is that we're making lives easier for everyday Nevadans and supporting our economy and especially our small businesses, how we do that really does require for us to come to the table with ideas of how to solve a problem, but to be open to listening to other perspectives and to incorporate those so that we really do come to the best policy that we can. And so I'm very hopeful that we'll continue to work together. And of course, listen, we're not going to agree on everything. Mm-hmm. That's just the nature of, I think, human beings, and certainly of this building. We won't agree on everything. There are going to be things where we disagree, and we won't be able to see eye to eye. But I think it is incumbent upon us as lawmakers to really strive to find that balance where we are solving a problem and doing it in a really responsible way. And that requires a lot of bipartisan support and support across both chambers of the legislature as well.
In addition to the federal challenges at the federal level that we may see coming down with cuts and things like that, what other opportunities and challenges do you foresee for Nevada in the next year or two?
I mean, I think, to me, it is really listening to your constituents, right? And when we're listening to them, we are hearing about some of the issues that they face and how it is that we tackle those. I always say our challenges, because it is hard to say, how are we going to address, the cost of housing, and how we are embracing that in our communities, how we're trying to solve that here at the legislative level. And I think there are some good solutions to that and some pieces where we can really make a difference, where we can both increase the supply of housing, increase affordable housing, make it easier for home buyers to be able to access housing. And we have some legislation to do some of those things, right? To focus on the ability for people who are looking for a house to live in, for them to be able to purchase that home. And I think those are where it's challenging, because there's no law that we're going to pass that is going to solve every single issue when we think about these sort of macro issues like housing issues. But I think that the opportunity comes from being able to find all of the different solutions that can lend itself to that particular issue and find a place where we really are making a difference. So I always think that session is full of those, and the legislative session, like you said, is about halfway over, but we just got our last set of bills introduced for this legislative session, so I think we are off and running, and still a lot more work to be done in the next half-ish of session.
Still a lot of work to do. Yeah, and it is Chamber Day at the session, and we have a record 155 Nevadans here
It's amazing.
at our Capitol. And that is a record for any trade association in the history of the Nevada State Legislature. It's a record for the Vegas Chamber. So
amazing.
they're all here. They're curious. They're engaged. They're talking.
Yes.
We'll talk to them here in just a little bit. But what would be your legislative call to action for the business community or for all Nevadans?
I think it is just staying engaged, right? Having 155 attendees as part of the Chamber Days here at the legislature is truly remarkable. I think it speaks to why it is that your work is so important, right? That you're bringing those voices, that we're able to hear from them. I just actually had some meetings with Chamber members who are here for Chamber Day to talk about the particular issues that industry or that business is facing. And so we had a chance to talk about a few pieces of legislation. And honestly, I think my call to action to everybody would be just that. You have to have your voice heard. We are here for 120 days. We pass a lot of bills. We hear a lot more bills than we pass, obviously. But we can't do any of that if we're not hearing from the people who are directly affected by that. And so the more that you engage, the more that you talk to legislators, the more that you tell them, hey, my business does this particular thing that you are working on, and I would love to be able to give you some insight to how this actually works. It makes for better policy, it makes us better legislators, and that really is, I think, the key to not only making sure what we're doing makes sense, but also making sure that your voice is heard. Is just continuing that advocacy, participating in things like Chamber Days, making sure that you're connecting with lawmakers. That's how we're going to find the best legislation here this session.
Well, and Leader Cannizzaro, you have been nothing but stellar to work with. I mean, a staunch advocate for Nevadans, the business community. You meet with the Chamber just about every week, I think, yes. And I just can't say enough about your leadership and what it means to the entire Nevada business community, employers, employees, just across the board. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Well, I appreciate everything that the Chamber does. It makes it so easy to do this job and to work with you when we're able to have those open conversations and, like you said, weekly meetings to hear about legislation concerns, work through amendments and language. And so I couldn't do any of that without all of your help. So I really do appreciate it, Mary Beth, and your members have just been fantastic. So,
well, thank you again. We appreciate you.
Cox has been a valuable supporter of this community for more than 25 years. We're here for you, your home, your business, your life. With Cox, you can do more of what you love every day. From Allegiant Stadium to your home, when the game is on the line, Cox Fiber helps everyone enjoy a winning experience. Extraordinary speed, exceptional reliability. You can count on Cox to keep you connected. And now with Cox Mobile, you can take that excellence on the go. We're here for your business too. With the technology you need to take on whatever's next, our reliable network has been critical to the growth plan of businesses from coast to coast. At Cox Business, helping you succeed is what drives us. We're proud to help businesses everywhere reach their customers and their goals. Our Cox Media team strives to be the full-service advertising partner you've always wanted. With over 30 years of media and advertising expertise, Cox Media can be the team behind your marketing success, so you can get back to doing more of what you love every day, bringing the world to your door, or your door to the world, and all at the speed of light.
Welcome to JobX, your one-stop platform to unlock career opportunities in Southern Nevada. Now is the perfect time to explore your future career through JobX. JobX connects you to a personalized skills assessment, local in-demand careers, and training and educational opportunities near you.
Not sure what career is right for you? Take the skills matching quiz and find your fit.
Ready to get started?
Visit jobx.vegas today and make your next career move.
Your main passions are about helping victims of domestic violence, protecting seniors, veterans, and I know education is near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
So educate, you have a bill that's in the works.
Yes.
And boy, there's a lot to it.
There is. So I'm really excited this session to introduce and to hopefully get over the finish line the Educate Act. So it's education through accountability, transparency, and efficiency. We know that there have been a lot of discussions around our school districts, our school boards of trustees, about how we're recruiting and retaining teachers in our classrooms and how we're delivering education to students. And so the Educate Act is really designed to get at all of those pieces. So it does provide for continuation of raises, historic raises that we gave to our teachers and to our staff to make sure that we can get a qualified teacher in every single classroom here in Nevada. So it continues those raises so we can keep all of those amazing folks working in all of our schools. It also provides for better pathways for alternative routes to licensure and other individuals who are coming into the education profession to get them into classrooms and get them the right training so that we're putting really qualified teachers in every classroom. And so we're working strongly with our university systems here in Nevada to get into all of those schools and make sure that we're training the best teachers here, right here in Nevada, to keep them here in our classrooms. We've also got pieces in there to help to improve education in the classroom, giving teachers more time to actually educate students, less time doing some of those overly burdensome administrative duties that they've been asked to take on, so that we can focus on improving kids' education and making sure that we're really dialed into how it is we're attaining those goals for those kids. We also have in there accountability measures for our school districts to make sure that we are hiring and retaining qualified individuals, so that when we're investing our public dollars in our public education system, we have that accountability kind of coming along with that. We're also working on expanding pre-K to all 4-year-olds here in Nevada, which is the number one most fundamental piece that we can do to give kids a really good head start going into their educational journeys. And then some accountability measures around our charter schools as well, and our opportunity scholarships, because we believe with public dollars comes with it public accountability. And so there are pieces along with that to make sure that as we're investing and continuing to broaden our educational perspectives here in Nevada, that we're doing so in a way that the public can really say, we're delivering for them.
When I was reading about the Educate Act, it really struck me, and again, listening to you and your passion for education and all of the many facets of this bill, it sounds like it has the potential to be landmark legislation.
I think so. I think now is the time, right? We spent so much of last session talking about funding education. We were able to pass the largest budget, education budget in state history, which I believe was giving some very needed resources to our school districts across the state, right? We have very rural school districts that have different needs than some of our urban school districts. And we wanted to make sure that we were investing those dollars in a way that allows for them to deliver that education to students. Building on that, though, we also have seen that there are areas where we really can increase accountability. When I think about the Clark County School District, we've seen a lot of and had a lot of conversations about their budgeting issues and some of the other things that have come up. We've had some questions about some of our boards of trustees, and we need to make sure that what we're delivering for the public is that trust, right? We're saying you are going to send your child into a classroom. When they get into that classroom, they should be receiving the very best education that we can possibly provide them. And I think that there really is a lot of bipartisan support to improve education in a way that is meaningful for students. And so I think this is landmark legislation, but I also think that now is the time to have those conversations.
Well, thank you again. We appreciate you. That'll do it for this edition of Taking Care of Business. We'll see you next time. Hi there, I'm Mary Beth Sewald, President and CEO of the Vegas Chamber. And you know, here at the Vegas Chamber, we are always looking for ways to save you money because we know how incredibly expensive it can be to run your own business. So we are here to help you save big on the essentials that you need for your business. We've partnered with ODP Business Solutions, formerly known as Office Depot, to bring you some exclusive discounts that are only good for Vegas Chamber members. Up to 55% off office supplies, up to 30% off ink and toner, up to 20% off technology, free next day shipping on orders of $20 or more, and so much more. Reach out to any of us here at the Vegas Chamber for more information today and start saving today. Thank you to Speaker Yeager and Senate Majority Leader Cannizzaro for providing your invaluable insights today about the 2025 Nevada State Legislative Session. The Vegas Chamber will continue to be here in Carson City every single day of session, advocating on behalf of businesses, employers, and employees. I'm Mary Beth Sewald. Thanks for watching Taking Care of Business.